Hi students, I wanted to go over the first paper with you, so that's what we're going to be doing in the video. So I'm going to read over the prompt. The prompt is in the modules. It's in the module of the first paper, and you can read over it on your own, of course. But I'm going to read over it now and just kind of explain a bit more, that sort of thing. There is a mini version of the prompt in the syllabus, but this is the full page version of the prompt. So we're going to go over it, and then what I'm going to do is go over some articles that I have sent you the links for that deal with different aspects of this issue from different sides, from kind of one side, kind of in the middle of both sides, and to the other side. That you can actually use these articles if you want to quote from them or bounce your ideas off of them in the paper. You are welcome to use those. You can also use additional articles. You're not required to use an article for this paper, but I think going over them and sending them to you gives you a more informed understanding of the issue and could help your paper. So let's go over the prompt. So again, just to clarify one more time, you can access the prompt in the modules. It will be under the first module for paper number 1. All right, so I'm just going to read through it and explain a little bit as we go. So it says your topic is the youth and right to privacy. So it says in this essay you are going to argue. So just to clarify, I'm going to stop right there and clarify. All the papers that we are doing in this class are argument papers because this is a critical thinking class. So you are going to be arguing your point. You will need to have a clear idea of what your point is, what your idea is, and you will also need to show awareness of the other side as well. Not to support them, but to show that you understand the full spectrum of the issue. All right, so getting back to this. In this essay, you are going to argue whether children or teenagers should or should not have the rights to privacy. If they do have privacy rights, how much and in what circumstances should they have that privacy? If they do not have the right to privacy, why not? What are the benefits and drawbacks to youth having or not having those privacy rights? Should they have privacy rights in some circumstances but not others? You should narrow down your focus for an effective paper, and I'm going to tell you specifically what I mean by how you should narrow the paper so that you can have a really focused argument in this regard for this topic. So you should narrow your focus to a particular age group. So you don't want to cover everything from preschoolers to 17-year-olds in one paper. Their stages of development and their needs and the concerns of parents are going to be vastly different for different ages and stages within that spectrum. So you should decide what age group you want to work with, and you should clarify that in your introduction so that the reader is really clear where you're going. So again, so you should narrow your focus to a particular age group. So for example, you could say 7 to 10-year-olds, or you could say middle school students or high school students, or whatever that age group is that you personally want to work with. All right, so and it says so I said that. So it said you should also narrow your focus to either online or offline. So are you talking about privacy rights online, or are you talking about privacy rights offline, as in the child's room, or navigating about in the world, that sort of thing, one or the other. Really don't try to blend the two because it ends up being confusing. It can end up being very confusing for the writer because you're trying to just incorporate two really quite vastly different categories, and for the reader it can be very confusing because it can seem to be all over the place. It also gives you a very superficial treatment of the issue because you're trying to pack a lot into a relatively short paper. So again, here are your two categories you have to narrow it down to, and because that's important, I'm going to write it down. All right, so you should narrow your paper to Number one, you should narrow it to, is this going to the age group? What age group are you going to work with? Okay. So again, it's age categories. You don't have to say, only 5-year-olds. I mean, you absolutely could, but you can have an age range, but it has to be a logical grouping. All right. So age group, and then online or offline. Okay. So narrow topic. Okay, so do remember to narrow your topic down to one of those two age groups. All right, fine. All right, so now let's move on. So it says, for example, should youth be given unlimited freedom online, or should parents supervise what youth are doing online? Should parents have, and what does that look like? So that's what you need to define for your, these are just ideas. You don't have to cover these ideas, but you should define what it means for your purposes, for your argument. So it says, should parents have all passwords for their children's accounts, or is that too intrusive? Should parents read their children or teens' text messages, emails, and social media postings? Why or why not? Again, get really clear and specific on your ideas because that will help you to communicate it effectively to your reader. Offline. So now we're in the real world, so to speak, right? Should children be able to go places on their own with other children or without adult supervision? And again, you are going to specify an age range for that, right? And then it says, should youth be able to have their room as off limits to parents, or should their rooms be subject to parental supervision and or scrutiny? And it says, what about journals and other writings? Should parents have any access to that, or is that off limits, right? So should those be private? Are there circumstances where that privacy would be a problem for the youth or for someone else? Again, specify what ages you will focus on, because again, it may be quite different depending on the age. You do not need to tackle all of these issues in your paper. These are just to get you thinking about the topic and about the specifics of it so that you can have a very focused paper, and the more focused you can be in your idea, the more focused you are likely to communicate to the reader. Okay, all right, and so let's look at the next one, and it says, the next point, it's an essay structure. All right, so I've gone over like the topic. So, to just kind of start thinking about the topic. You might do a brainstorm about the topic and maybe, narrow it down to an age range, narrow it down to on or offline, and then do a pro and con list about, the different issues. If you know what your point of view is and you're not sure how could anyone disagree with that, I promise you someone does. You could even use Google, honestly, to just Google what someone's view is on that, just so you have a sense of why they would take that particular view. It helps, I think, also to understand where they're coming from, who would disagree with it. Maybe they're concerned parents, maybe they are people that they have a different view or a different experience for some reason, and try to put yourself in their shoes, so to speak. Not that if you don't have to agree with them, but it's easier to address those concerns, which you are going to need to do in your paper if you're clear on what they are. All right, so let's go over essay structure, which is the next category in the prompt. It says you must use standard essay structure, so standard college essay structure. So you guys have all successfully, completed English 120. So we are not throwing any of that out. That's all in play, right? So you definitely need to use those great essay skills that you've already been working with in that class, right? So it says that you must have a clear introduction. So the introduction clearly needs to introduce your reader to the topic and to your idea about the topic. Okay. It also should cover the other point of view. You've got to, because this is an argument paper, you should explain what your point of view is and what an opposite point of view. You don't have to explain every point of view in your paper, but just at least the opposition that you will be addressing in the paper, all right? And it should have a clear thesis statement, which is going to be your topic plus your idea about your topic, all right? So, and then it says, so I'm going to just read through this. I gave the overview of the overview, but I'm going to read through this to get a little more specific on the intro. It says, in the introduction, remember to give, as I said, a brief overview of the aspect or aspects of youth privacy that you will address in your essay. So again, you're going to explain what age range, you're going to explain whether you're focusing on offline in real life, issues, or you're focusing on online, and you're going to set the stage, so to speak, okay, in your intro. All right, so it talks about this this term that I made up called English lasagna that I'd like you to use. It says I mentioned class. I haven't mentioned class yet because we haven't, been able to be in class. We're doing it this way, but I'm going to talk about it now. So writing an essay, in my view, is similar to making lasagna. So if you've ever made lasagna, right, you've got the different layers. So you've got the layer of, like your noodles, right? And you might put a layer of tomato sauce on there. You might put, a layer of cheese and, etc. If you're vegetarian like I am, you might throw some spinach in there, right? So but you've got layers of all the different things that you need, right? You're doing the same thing with essay writing. You have different layers to it. So in your intro, you're going to have those layers. You are going to explain the issue. You are going to explain both sides of the issue. And then you are going to you're going to transition to your thesis statement. You're going to explain your thesis a little before you get to the thesis. And then you have your thesis statement. So we've got all those layers. You've got to hit your layers. You've got to, if you just go straight into your thesis, the reader is saying, well, what happened here? I don't have any idea what you're talking about, right? Because a lot of times when you're working on a paper, you've been thinking about the issue. You've been brainstorming. You've been making that pro and con list, or, whatever kind of brainstorm you'd like to do, but you've been thinking about the issue probably more than your reader has. So anyone that they certainly shouldn't have to be taking this class, but any reasonably intelligent person, from anyone that speaks English anywhere in the world should be able to read your paper and be very clear as to your meaning, but they can't do that if they don't have all the information. So that's why we need to layer it. You've got to explain it first, explain the issue, and then go into the different points of view, and then go into your thesis statement. So that's what I mean by English lasagna. All right, so it says, so again, and I said it here in the prompt as well. So I'm going to read through that again because it's that important. So it says, again, explain the issue. All right, so explain the controversy. So what I mean by the controversy is, why do people disagree about this, right? So you're both sides. Explain both sides neutrally. You're not attacking the other side. You can either seek in the body of the paper to address their concerns, or you can show why your view is more compelling, but you are not attacking them. Okay, so you are just explaining neutrally in your intro what both sides are, and then you wind into your view in the same paragraph for your thesis. All right. And then it says explain a bit about your view, and then add the thesis statement. Boom, boom, boom. Very traditionally, the thesis statement is the last sentence. It doesn't have to be. There are different ways to craft that, but it's very traditional to have it last because that gives the reader all the information they need before they get to what your clear viewpoint is. All right. So then it says what to think about your thesis. What specifically are you advising your reader that they should do? I mean, so that is one way to think about it. You're clear. You need to have in the thesis statement. I'm going to write this down because this is important. So your thesis statement, one way that I like to describe it is you need to have your topic plus your idea about the topic. So I'm going to put idea about topic. You're a math person. It's like we have an equation. Yay. So we've got thesis. Oh, it's going downhill. I'm sorry, it's going downhill. But so at any rate, thesis equals topic plus idea about topic. So you need your topic and your idea about your topic in the same sentence. So again, sometimes this will feel repetitive. I promise you to the reader, it is not at all repetitive. It is clear. So even if you have the topic in your intro or in a title, you still have to tell them in your thesis because it just makes it super clear for the reader. It's like they have a map as to exactly where you're going with this. You don't want to leave it as a surprise at the end. That's great for creative writing, very confusing for essay writing. So you don't want to do that. So topic plus idea. So do state the topic and then your clear idea about that topic. All right, so you've got to have that. Each paragraph, that's a body paragraph, so then it says, the next paragraph down, it should say each body paragraph, so you could add that in. Each body paragraph needs to have a topic sentence. So I'm going to do, this is just a little quick review, because we were, many folks have been off for the summer. We've had a pandemic going on. I mean, like, it's just... Our brains are just on fire trying to absorb everything that's been happening in recent months. So I'm going to do a quick review. So I talked about the intro, talked about my English lasagna method, talked about the thesis statement and where it should go, what should be in it. So every body paragraph needs a topic sentence. Okay, so there aren't any that don't have it, right? It has to be there. So your body paragraph, so I'm going to write this down too because it's that important. Body paragraph must have a topic sentence. Okay, so must have a topic sentence. I'm going to also do a quick review because I can, if I was a student right now, I might be like, topic sentence, can't remember. Let's have it again. So you don't have to freak out because I'm going to tell you. So a topic sentence is, again, you may remember, it is the main idea for your body paragraph. It has to support the thesis. So main idea, and it has to be an idea, not a fact. So if facts can be verified, like we could look up the information, right? If it can be verified, it's not an idea, it's a fact, right? If it's something that people have different opinions on, then that is an idea, right? So your idea for your topic sentence, it has to support your thesis. What I like to think of it as is often this works out this way, is that it's a reason that you think what you think in your thesis. It's a clear reason that you're advising your reader to do whatever it is you're advising them to do on the issue. So if you know where you're going with the paper, you have narrowed down, I'm working with this age group, I'm going to work with online or offline, whatever it is, right? And here's what I think about the issue. I think this should be how it is, right? Then you are going to likely, this is one way to do it, think of that it's a way that tends to work very effectively, is to have 3 reasons. What are 3 reasons I think this? Those reasons can turn into your topic sentences. And every body paragraph gets a different reason. That's one way to structure the paper. Okay, so just if you think of it in those terms, I think that can help a lot. And then, if you have learned how to do in previous classes, like the formal outline with the Roman numerals and all that, that can be very helpful if you know how to do that or you'd like it, and to help you organize your paper, planning it basically like an outline before you do it. I'm not requiring that. I'll tell you why I'm not requiring that. Because that used to really, for whatever reason, I even like Roman numerals, but that method used to totally stress me out. I was really intimidated by it for some reason, and I would look at all those Roman numerals and I'd go, yeah, let's put this aside, right? So I came up with a method for myself that works very effectively for me. So I share that with you now. So I'm going to take this this part off. Our little easel here. Okay. And then I am going to share with you my method for planning your paper. All right, so here's what I call it. I call it my plan of attack. And the reason I call it that is that it feels empowering to me and less intimidating than a formal outline. So here's how I would do of my plan of attack, right? Plan of attack. Right? Doesn't that sound like energizing? Okay. And again, if you already have a method that works for you with that and it's working for you, you just roll with that. But it's good to have different tools in your writing toolboxes. Sometimes we get just stumped by a particular topic. So plan of attack, what I do is I clarify the issue, and then I have my working thesis, which is I narrow down my topic, plus my idea about my topic. Even if it's not perfectly crafted, it doesn't have to be the perfect sentence. Nobody's going to see it but you at this point. But just like, so let's give an example from this. Let's say that you think that 12 to 14-year-olds should have a moderate amount of freedom online with some guidelines from parents, but maybe some minimal supervision. Let's say that's your idea. Then that's what you would write here. I mean, it doesn't have to be a complete sentence or anything. Just write, your topic and your idea, right? And then I would give 3 reasons. I'm going to put over here reasons that I think that. What are my, whatever reasons come to your head. If you can think of 4 or 5, that's great. I mean, you might only need 3, but sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes you don't have as much to say about one than you thought or whatever. And if you can only think of 2, fine, roll with that. This is only for you anyway. Nobody else is going to see it. So if you can only think of 2, roll with 2. The third one will come to you later. This is not to stress you out. This is to help you. So, it's not anything to stress over. It's just to help. All right. So I would say if that were my working thesis, so let's write down this sample working thesis, and let's say, what did I just say? I think I said 13 to, I don't know. I'll say now, 13 to 14-year-olds age, and online moderate supervision. And you would clarify what moderate supervision means to you in the intro, because people have different ideas about that as well. All right, so then I would have, that's where I'm going with it. I would probably, for me personally, I'd write that out into some kind of sentence or, bullet point idea. And then I'd have my 3 reasons. So the first reason, for example, could be that protecting the kids, the children, the young folks. It could be, having that moderate supervision could protect them from potential harm, right? The second reason might be preserve relationship with parents. Sorry that you got to see my back here this way. Right, but relationship with parents, meaning that a moderate amount of supervision and not being overly strict, that there could be a discussion, and that preserves this is an idea, not a fact, obviously, that preserves the relationship between the parents and the students. All right, so then we've got protection for the kids, preserving the relationship with the parents, and allowing for, and I chose online for this example, so allowing for the youth to develop online skills, right? Having that freedom to try some things out, to figure out what works or what doesn't. So development of online skills. Okay, so those are 3. There are more that folks can think of, but that just gives you an idea. That is what and then if I had an example of each one, like because you're going to need examples in your paper. So if I had an example of each one, I would then somewhere, if I had room, I would off to the side write the example. You can, in this paper, use examples from your own experience. That is totally fine in this paper. You just don't want to forget to put it in. Sometimes we forget. So you would, by example, I mean, say that you had an experience with this, something your own parents did one way or the other, and it supports your idea. then you could tell the little story. Okay, it doesn't mean you write the whole paper on that example. You just give that as an illustration. The little story is the example. So if you can think of that, you might just write off to the side here, like protecting from harm could be, protecting from, like bullies or, predators or something like that. And that could be something one could look up. Or you could, share any experience that is relevant to that. Again, if you've had any of this, like an example here, preserving the relationship with the parents, if you had an experience like this and your parents were able to discuss the issue with you and their concerns and where they were coming from, and that really allowed you to have enhanced understanding of where they were coming from, and you could give that story is what I'm saying. So, and this could be just little bullet points that I don't want to forget this example. Sometimes if we think of something but we don't write it down at the time, our minds are filled with a lot of details, and sometimes it's like, what was the example, what was I going to use? So if you can just write it down, if it does occur to you in what I call your plan of attack, then it's there for you. And as you can see, this is I hope you can read that. If you can, I'm hoping you get the idea of it, right? And that is another example that normally no one else will have to be able to read it, because it's just for you. It's just, the whole point of it is to get your ideas down. That's it, right? In a way that enables you to be empowered to then plan out the paper. Because once you have a plan, then the paper is going to flow for you. If you just wait to be inspired and dive in and just hear it's midnight the night before and I'm just going to please let this come to me, right? And you're sitting there at your computer or with a pen and paper, or everything has to be obviously typed. It's being submitted online. But, sometimes people start with paper and pen. Sometimes they, compose online. All that's good. But you don't want to just wait till you're, trying to be inspired and trying to just have it come to you. And what usually happens with that is that the paper is just all over the place, right? So you want to have a plan, and then you want to go with that plan. And this can be a tremendous stress reliever, because then you know what your plan is. You know what to do in every paragraph. All right, so I'm going to take this off. So we are going to move on from that. There's one more thing, though, that of course you don't want to forget is your conclusion. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But in my plan of attack, personally, I don't really plan out my conclusion. I just go back to my thesis and intro and, wrap it up. But you certainly could, if thoughts occur to you of what you want to include in your conclusion. All right, so I'm going to go back to where we were in the prompt, where it says every paper needs to have a clear topic sentence. So again, a topic sentence is your topic and idea about the topic for that paragraph. It could be your first reason, has to support the thesis. If it doesn't support your thesis, it is not a good topic sentence. It can't be supporting the other person's view. In this case, it has to support your thesis, all right? And then you would need to explain that topic sentence and give an example. So I'm going to write this out. So body paragraphs we're talking here. Body paragraphs. So then you've got to have your, here are the layers. Here are the English lasagna layers. Layer number 1 is your topic sentence. All right, topic plus idea. So I'm going to use an example that's just a really straightforward example of what I mean by that. So your topic sentence often has a transition word or phrase with it. So for example, first is a very traditional way to begin anything like that. Now you can transition to your topic sentence with the phrasing that you use, or there are many transition words and phrases, but I'm going to, when I talk about today, I'm just going to talk about these straightforward ones. What I find sometimes is that this level, at the critical thinking level, that sometimes we are reaching for analysis, and we are reaching so hard for the analysis part of essay writing that we are getting really good at that, and we're really looking at issues more in depth, which is awesome. But sometimes in the process of reaching for analysis on a deeper level, we forget about essay structure. And that's what I found happens sometimes at this level. So we want to make sure we do not forget about essay structure. This is still an essay, okay? So we have to incorporate that analysis within the ramifications of essay structure. And so that's what I'm talking about here. So a topic sentence for that sample thesis I gave earlier could be, I'm just going to give that example. First, by offering teens a moderate amount of supervision online, parents can protect their children from predators. Let's say that's what we want to focus on. This is what I mean by it could be a reason. The topic sentence is an idea. It's not a fact. It's the writer's idea, but it's a reason. And then so first, by offering teens a moderate amount of supervision online, parents can protect their children from predators. That's this idea. Does it support the thesis? Yes. Right? So that would be the topic, since you know then that the whole paragraph is going to be about that. If you get to a new reason, then you need a new paragraph. All right? So then, but you can't, of course, no one sentence paragraphs, right? So you have to do a little more after that, and that's our second layer. You have to explain the topic sentence, right? So you have to explain this. That usually takes, that explanation typically takes 2 to 3 sentences to explain it. All right, so don't assume your reader knows exactly what you mean. They just assume they haven't really been thinking about this that much, and you're explaining what you mean. So in about 2 to 3 sentences, you explain what you mean. Then you need your example / evidence.